Hello and good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this TeachMeet, I'm sorry, of the Aerospace in Class MOOC. My name is Bjorn Bachmann, and I am the course coordinator of the Aerospace in Class MOOC. Together with us today in the room, we have the course coordinator, the course moderator, Yekaterina Shestitko, as well as the events officer, Ina Agajanova, who will be supporting this event from a technical point of view. So if you have any issues with your audio or connection, please do not hesitate to send her a message in the Q&A window. Now, to get a greater experience out of this event, you can use live captions and subtitles. And to activate these, you just need to go to your video controls and select captions or subtitles. And you will see here on the slides that I put a screenshot there. You will also see a question and answers or a Q&A window in your screen. Some of you have already used it, so hello from Latvia, hello from Poland and from Athens, from Portugal and Romania. So good evening, good afternoon to all of you. It's great that you're using the chat already. But if you don't see it, make sure to open it, because we will be using this chat window to share useful information and links with you there throughout the TeachMeet. Also, as this is an interactive event where the audience can interact with the speakers, because you are all MOOC participants and we are here to share experience. So please feel free to share your questions in the Q&A window. We will be collecting them and we will address them to the speakers in the end of this session. So, what are we here for today? We are in a TeachMeet, and this means it's a very informal, a very casual way of sharing your ideas, your good practices, your lesson plans within the Aerospace in Class MOOC. And yeah, just share your ideas, and we will hear some ideas today. That is why it is my great pleasure to welcome our speakers. We have 3 MOOC participants, Jose Maria, Małgorzata, and Daniela, who will share their drafts and their ideas with us. They are MOOC participants just like you, so it's a great way to get inspired and exchange with the peers. Moreover, I have the honor to welcome 2 of the Aerospace in Class lead teachers, Nectarios and Natalia, who have already developed and implemented their AERO Learning Scenarios last year. So I'm very happy actually to see also that we have more lead teachers joining us today in the chat. And feel free to ask questions to all of them. Thank you so much to all of you for being here with us and sharing your experience with the community. So first of all, I would like to ask you, how are you doing? You are all joining the Aerospace in Class MOOC, and we're already in the 3rd module. So by now you have already gotten to know the resources, you've gotten to know the draft and the template for your learning scenario. So I would like to know, how is your learning scenario draft going? You can either click on the link in the chat, or you can enter menti.com in your browser and enter the code, or you can scan the QR code from the slide. And I'm very curious to hear from all of you how it's going. So you will see a couple of options there, and I will go live with the results of the poll. Let's see what we have. Now, okay, it's a very even picture. Let's see how many more people will answer. You have several options. Okay, we have some who are already done and who are wondering when they can submit. We have one who hasn't started yet. That's not a problem. You still have some time. We have 3 participants who have already started, but they still have a lot of things to do. And also this is perfectly fine, because we still have the 4th module coming up next week. And in the 4th module, you will have time to finalize your learning scenario. But if you're halfway there, that is great. If you still need to refine some points, that is even better, of course. And if you're done, well, you still have some time to adapt it. And let's hear from the experience tonight. Maybe you get inspired. Maybe there are some ideas that you want to incorporate. So let's see after tonight how you want to adapt your learning scenario. Thanks for sharing how it's going. Okay, let's move back to the agenda for today. Now, we have a lot of things to do, and we will begin with the MOOC highlights and some insights into what happened so far by our course moderator, Yekaterina. We will then start with the main part of today's webinar with Jose Maria talking about sound transmission through laser pulses. Malgorzata will then share her ideas on aerospace origami. And we have Daniela, who will trace the history of flight in her presentation. And as I mentioned, we also have two aerospace lead teachers with us today who will present their learning scenarios that they've implemented last year already. Finally, of course, you will be able to ask questions throughout the entire evening. So ask your questions to the speakers and we will address them in the end in the Q&A session. All right, that is it from my side so far. So with this, I will pass on the word to Yekaterina. Yekaterina, how are you tonight?
I'm very well, Bjorn, and how are you?
I'm great. Thanks for joining.
I'm very happy to be here. Hello, everyone. I am Yekaterina. I work as a language teacher in Brussels, and I work with students of preschool and primary school age. And I'm the one who am moderating the MOOC and reading all of your comments and contributions and answering all of your questions. I'm very excited about today's TeachMeet event, and I'm very excited to see all of you here today because today is the day when you can get even more inspired and get more ideas for your learning scenario that you can submit next week. But now in my 5 minutes presentation, I would like to go back and show you what happened so far. And I can say that it was quite challenging to put it together because during these 2.5 weeks, we've actually been through a lot and it was very saturated times. We've been traveling through Module 1, where you got to know and had your first look on Airbus Foundation Discovery Space Resources. You watched the videos, you discussed them, you highlighted the most interesting parts for you. In Module 2, you got acquainted with pedagogical approaches such as inquiry-based learning, design thinking, creativity, developing 21st century skills of your students. And you can see here a small picture of a word cloud that I extracted from Module 2. And I was pleased to see that actually creativity and design thinking was one of the most interesting approaches for you. And I'm looking forward to see your learning scenarios that you base on these approaches. Module 3 has opened this Monday, and you had a chance to get familiar with the experience of our lead teachers and how they already implemented their learning scenarios. And as I mentioned, Module 4 will open on the 8th of March, and we're coming to the moment when you submit your learning scenario. But of course, when you learn, you go very fast and very prompt through the activities. Some things can remain unnoticed. So let's go back to Module 1, which I had very much a pleasure to read and participate in. In Module 1, we started to connect with peers. And I'm sure you know that distant learning, online learning can be very lonely when you're alone in your bedroom, just in front of your laptop. But right now, on this very first Padlet, we have more than 500 inputs and comments from all over the world. So if you miss something, please go back to this Padlet and we will share the link in the chat and connect more with your colleagues. And maybe you'll find colleagues to collaborate with from your region or from your city, or maybe from the nearest school. because all of us, we're connected with one goal to make our classroom experience more high quality and more fun. So I'm pretty sure that you can find people to connect with easily here. And I mentioned that our group is very diverse, and it's true that participants in this MOOC, they're coming from United States to Indonesia and back. And you can see how many countries we're actually from. And that makes this TeachMeet and this course even more amazing, because today we've met all together at 5 o'clock Brussels time, but actually we're all from all over the world. If you haven't put your PIN yet, please do via the link as well, because we want to know what country you're in right now. Also, you've already known a lot about Airbus Foundation Discover Space Resources, but now when you're putting together your learning scenario, maybe you're missing this small detail, this small sparkle to make it even more engaging for your students. So there was a Padlet in Module 1 with various space resources, and our participants, they shared lectures, they shared tutorials, cartoons, songs. So that can be a good inspiration for you when you're preparing the last version of your learning scenario. Please do check it out. I also noted a lot of things for my teaching as well there. Some of you on this small survey in Menti that Bjorn just showed us, they said that they haven't started developing the learning scenario yet, or they are just taking the first steps. So maybe if you don't have an idea yet how to put it all together, you can go to discussion forums of first two models, because some of your colleagues have already figured their topic out. For example, Liliana from Portugal, she is motivated to do a learning scenario about building a moon shelter or camp for astronauts in their learning scenario. So if you're looking for this inspiration or some cool ideas, maybe you can get them from your peers. So please click on the discussion tab in your course page. And one more thing that I would like to mention, that we do have a very live Facebook group with everyday updates. And it came to my attention that maybe not all of you are already there. So please join us via the link that we share in the chat to get more casual discussions and more announcements and more sharing with all of us there. I've been looking to see you there. I also collected a lot of questions from you that we will address at the end of the session. But for now, I'd like to say thank you for your proactivity, for your enthusiasm, and for your positive approach. I had very good time reading all of your contributions. So please stay as active as you are, and I'm looking forward to see your success at the end of this course.
Wow, thank you, Ekaterina. And I'm really amazed how active our participants are. It's really great to see that we're connecting from so many parts of the world and all getting together, as you say, to get a high quality aerospace education in our classrooms that is of great quality and fun. So I'm really amazed, and I really think it's cool that we all get together here. Now, with this being said, I think this was a great introduction to see who is joining and who is part of this community. And I now think we can start with our first speaker, that is Jose Maria Diaz Fuentes, who will share his insights on sound transmission through laser pulses. Jose Maria, how are you?
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to share my lesson plan with all of you. My name is Jose. I teach physics, technology, and ICT in Spain, and I'm sure that this MOOC is an excellent opportunity to bring many projects to the classroom. In the first week, I watched all videos of the Airbus Foundation Discovery Space. I love all of them because all can generate innovative ideas. Among them, how to communicate on the moon caught my attention. I was struck by such low data transfer rate take place in distant communication. And this fact let me research the technical specification of the Perseverance on Mars. In the next slide, we can see 3 communication antennas on the rover. The first one has an excellent speed rate, but it is used only to send data from the rover to the orbiter, not for the direct communication with the air. Indeed, communication to air are, as we see, much slower. The video occurs a future in communication via laser pulses. This technique supports a very large volume of transmission. Now, I would like to show you the work we did some time ago in our school. The details of this lesson plan can be found in the Scientix repository. I think it is a good example of how you can send large amounts of information in a very simple way. The students found it amazing, and they had really enjoyed it with this experience. These are the main objectives of the lesson. Understand the operation of electrical circuits, acquire skills related to manual work, promote scientific vocation, collaborative work, and gender equality. To get started, we need to introduce some basic electronic concepts. Don't worry, they are very few and it is not complicated. The first basic operation of an NPN transistor is to let the electric current pass from the terminal C to E, but it is only possible if an electric signal enters through B. This is particularly useful for designing automated systems, but it is not our case. Better, a transistor is very sensitive to changes in current entering in the base B, and it responds by amplifying this variation by a factor of 1000. Often, those devices are used as signal amplifier. Nice, you will sure love this property. If we connect an MP3 device to the base of the NPN transistor, we will generate an oscillating current with the same and rich information, but 1000 times more intense. This is how any sound amplifying device works. We don't need to buy any device for this experience because we have something like that at home. And now we are making the modulated laser emitter. We build this emitter with very cheap materials. One laser of the cheapest found in any store, one resistor, and 3 rechargeable batteries that we are reused from an old home phone. Some wires, a switch, and plastic from electrical pipes. The weak MP3 signal is amplified by the transistor, and it makes the laser work with different intensities according to the input signal from the MP3. So we are ready to send our information far and beyond. The receiver is a typical circuit of a half-wave radio device, but it is somewhat modified. We need very few electronic components to make it, plus a 9 volts battery. On the left, the bipolar transistor governs all operation, depending on the intensity of light that comes on it. And finally, here is the final product. We are making our favorite music travel long distances with all its information intact. And since light doesn't need a material medium to propagate, this way of transmitting data will be effective in the outer space. That is all. Thank you for your attention.
And thank you so much, Jose Maria, for this very hands-on example of how to integrate video from the Airbus Foundation Discovery Space resources. And I think, yeah, as you said, it's very hands-on. It's very, you can make students discover a day-to-day object, right? An MP3 player, which can be very nice and very inspiring for them. Now, you mentioned Scientix, and I just wanted to share for those of the participants today who don't know Scientix, that this is a great platform. It's a community of science teachers in Europe, and we have more than, well, we have thousands of teachers joining us from Europe and beyond on this community, sharing their practices and exchanging on science education in Europe. So if you're curious about this, make sure to check it out. Okay, thanks again, Jose Maria. We will now move on to our next speaker, Małgorzata, who will share her learning scenario on aerospace origami. So, Małgorzata, how are you today?
Great, thank you.
Nice.
Greetings from Poland. Okay, hello everyone. My name is Małgorzata. I'm from Poland, and I have got the pleasure to talk to you about aerospace origami. I'm going to tell you about how to interest children in aviation. Oh, sorry. Okay, so first of all, I will talk briefly about active and passive teaching methods. Passive teaching methods are on the top of the learning pyramid, and their effectiveness is low, very low. So I would like to focus on practice by doing method. In this method, kids, students can use their ideas, knowledge, competition, and experience. To illustrate my point, I will show you the instruction of how to make paper planes. By making the models of paper planes, the kids can discover how fast, how high, how long the planes can fly. They can also play with models. So the teachers give students space to discover and make mistakes and draw conclusions. So each student, each kids can make as many models as they want. So then can compare their results, improve their models, and play with the better planes. And the teacher who want to encourage their students to learn aeroplane origami can also visit YouTube channel Color Creative. The films contain instruction on how to make super paper jet, world record paper plane, or how to make the best paper aeroplane. The idea of construction paper planes, it's only a part of a bigger project based on aviation education. The project can be changed and adapted in case of teachers' needs. So thank you very much for your attention, and that's all from me. And if you want some questions, don't hesitate and ask. Thank you very much.
And thank you so much, Małgorzata. And as you've rightly mentioned, for everyone joining us today, if you have any questions to any of our speakers, or if you have questions throughout the MOOC, you can ask them now. So please don't be shy, just post your question in the Q&A. We will collect everything and then address it to the speakers in the Q&A session at the end of this live event. Okay, so I think, Małgorzata, you actually mentioned some very nice points, and I like the starting point of the pyramid and the distinction between active and passive learning. I think this is something we all need to keep in mind, that it's active learning which actually teaches the most and which is where children learn the most. Thanks a lot for this again. And we will now move to Daniela, who will share her learning scenario on, Well, moving from impossible to possible. Will you tell us what this is about, Daniela?
Yes, hi. For everyone. So, and this is my scenario, and I am the Italian teacher in the secondary school. Well, the control from the myth of Icarus to the Artemis and beyond. When the impossible become possible, man, and this time from the myth of Icarus to space mission of the robotics. So, from the myth of Icarus to the curiosity and the ingenious of Ulysses, man has always wanted to fly and discover new horizons. Well, how has the paradigm changed from Ulysses to us? From curiosity to necessity, the challenge is hope. The Earth and the Sun in about 4.5 million years will end. If humanity were to survive, it has no other possibility to travel in space. This is the impossible is the definition of an event until the moment before it happens. So this is a learning scenario that can be done early as a STEAM module in the class or as a project extracurricular. The subject, of course, is the science of flight, aviation, education, and for astronomy and technology. The aim for students, how there are two types of lift, Newton and Bernoulli lift, will have understood how the lift, drag, weight, and the thrust happen at the current time and the proper amount. Learn about Bernoulli principle, the aerodynamics of an airplane, and the force acting on it. So, contract and our Glinden. This format is for all three the scenario of Airbus project. In fact, there is in the center the student, and we have tried to apply mooring tetralogic ring, the relationship with the student, teacher, and learning. We have given to student another point of view and analyze real data. So the main target for student and teacher is the objective. The first is the curiosity, marks the beginning of learning. How a bird can fly? How does an object fly? What is made of? How does a balloon ride? The other. The second is the pleasure, and we use gamification, the application of a type element of game, bring to another areas of activity, and in this case of discovering and building a kite, a small model of airplane, a girl or the other. What is the shape of wing? And they look at the other question. But is very important, the third, the passion for both the topic and the competition. So students learn by making cards with question and answer. They enter into the heart of the challenge of thus carry out in-depth study of aviation education and the space mission. What is the teachers very important is the transformation of research and the use of course Airbus project. You can find here a lot of material. So the second is very important, the activity, and the activity for teacher and the activity for student, and the setting for this activity. During this scenario, we use one easy example for activity in the, of course, Unstrackable and Airbus, to create our own guild. This is the center of learning process, learning by doing. So is similar, inquiry basis and chance, problem-based learning, chain-based learning. The question is who, what, when, how, why. In the second, you can use Airbus, Tinkercad or Minecraft. And the game is very easy, but you can repeat for all three scenarios of Airbus. In fact, in the first time, the student study the object. In the second, they make a card of the content of the physics of flight, history of flight and the space mission. And the end of each course, the game track, the student win a piece of flight object. Winner who build the flight object the first. The student activity in particular is study the property of history of flight, physics of flight, history of space mission, draw the track the game, draw and the marks, write card with property of three kind, write kind with some question and the correct answer at the last. Play, of course. You can find a lot of material online teacher. Of course, the Aerospace project and the other in science. This is the character at the left, the teacher, of course. Thank you. When the impossible became a reality. I should you to watch this movie. It's very wonderful. Thank you very much for all. It's a pleasure for me. Sorry for my bad English.
No worries, no problem at all. You did perfectly, and thank you so much for your really interesting presentation. We, of course, make sure to share the slides, so all the links that you see today and all the videos, you will find them in the slides, and we will make them available on the MOOC website. Now, I just wanted to highlight one point that you mentioned, Daniela, and that is gamification. So perhaps among the course participants, you remember that in Module 2, we talked about pedagogical approaches, and gamification was actually not among them. Now, is that a problem? Absolutely not, because there are so many pedagogical approaches and they all work in different contexts and each of them has their own benefits. So please feel free, as Daniela, to go beyond what we talk about in the MOOC. Because it's you who are the experts in your classrooms. And that is why if you feel there is a pedagogical approach that fits better, feel free to use it and to take your own experience into account. So that is just one point I wanted to mention. And of course, Daniela also talked about the instructables. So if you have not checked out the Airbus Foundation Discovery Space instructables, then feel free to do so, because there are some very hands-on instructions which can engage your students in activities of how to construct an airplane or how to set up an experiment. This is very interesting and it can be very useful for your learning scenario.
Thank you very much.
And thank you, Daniela. Now, we will move on to the next part of our TeachMeet, and you probably know it from the MOOC already. I have mentioned the lead teachers, the aerospace and class lead teachers. And just to give you some more context, there were 11 lead teachers coming to Brussels last year in a workshop to develop learning scenarios. And these learning scenarios, they've been tested in their classrooms. They have been even validated not only by the lead teachers, but also by a number of teachers across Europe. So it's really the learning scenarios underwent a review process. There was pre and post questionnaires, there was qualitative feedback, and in the end, we refined the learning scenarios to the current state that you will find them in now in the MOOC. So there is a huge process behind it, and I'm very excited to welcome 2 lead teachers today who will share their experience in this entire project. So the first one, Nectarios, will talk about Fly Grandma Fly, and I am sure the audience will be very curious to know what is behind this title. Nectarios.
Thank you, Bjorn. It was I'm very glad that I am part of this MOOC and part of this initiative, because the past year we work on these scenarios we work in our ideas, we evaluate them, and we refine them, as you said before. And it was a very, very nice experience for me, and I'm glad to be part of this project. So.
And I'm very glad that you are a part of it. So it's really been great working with you and also Natalia. So please, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Well, my scenario is called Fly Grandma Fly. It was implemented last year during April and May of 2020, during the first part of quarantine in Greece. I think that in most of European countries, we were in the same situation. We were in quarantine, so we were not able to go to school. So we had to do distance lessons. I implemented the scenario in the 5th grade of primary school. The students were 10 to 11 years old. It was a totally online implementation because we couldn't go to school any day in this period, and mostly asynchronous. Because during this period in Greece, we were not having lessons online like WebEx or Zoom or anything like that. So we had mostly asynchronous lessons. I used the AFDS resources, the Airbus Foundation Discovery Space resources, and because of the online implementation, I had to make some alterations in my scenarios. I had to use other apps like Google Forms to make it possible for my students to work on the scenario from their homes. So we have the scenario is based on the problem-based learning. We have a problem. Grandma Mary has a grandson that is a Erasmus student in the north part of Europe. Grandma Mary is staying, her home is in the South Europe, and she wants to go to visit her grandson, but she's very scared of flying in bad weather conditions, especially during winter. And my students, the students have to look for more detail, to look for information using the AFDS video, experimenting with the DIY glider, and then create a presentation or a poster to persuade Grandma Mary that it's very safe to fly in any weather condition, and that she should visit her grandson in north of Europe without any fears. So we first watched a video on how airplanes fly in bad weather. We find this video, of course, in the Airbus Foundation Discovery Space. It was a very helpful resource for us because students understand all the things that make an airplane safe in any condition, in any weather condition. And of course, we used, as you saw before, the Airbus Foundation Discovery Instructables. That is very useful for us. We created our own DI gliders. The instructions are very, very, very good, very useful because students could do this by themselves. They did it in their homes because we were distance in that period. We had quarantine, so we couldn't be in school, so I couldn't help them. The instructions were very helpful for them to create the glider and experiment with it. So the students experiment with ice, with electricity, and with snow, so they could understand that the plane is safe in any condition. Of course, I had to they had to give me some feedback, so I could know what they are doing, if they are doing the experiments, and what they realize from this experiment. So we used Google Forms. I choose Google Forms because it has some very, very important advantages. First, students can use it without any registration. That is very useful for them, so they can just get a link and write what they want. Also, the students can use it can have access to it from any device, because some of my students didn't have any computer or laptop, and they used only their parents' mobile phones. Also, it's easy to use it without help of any adult or teacher or parent, because the students are at home, so I couldn't help them in person. And finally, it is very easy to use it without any broadband internet connection, because also some of my students didn't have any Wi-Fi connection. They had only internet connection from a mobile phone of their parents. And after all the activities, they were able to write some very persuasive letters and posters to Grandma Mary. They shared it on a Padlet. You can see here some of them. They are in Greek, of course, but they write very warm and kind posters to Grandma Mary to persuade her to travel to her grandson. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Nectarios, for your presentation. And I think your learning scenario is really a good example of how you make a connection to your students' lives, because everyone has at least a family member that they can relate to, and it's really a good example of how to explain that it's safe to fly. And of course, you can also use other questions. So I think it's a really great example. One other thing you mentioned is, of course, the online implementation. And we all remember that last year we all struggled with this. Now, this spring, unfortunately, we still seem to be in a very similar situation. So for many of you, this could be a very important question of how to actually implement your learning scenario online. And here with Nectarios' presentation, maybe you have heard some advice and some ideas that can help you. And you may remember in Module 3, you also hear lead teacher Barry Maguire, who also shares his experience of implementing his learning scenario online. So don't despair, there are many options and many ways to do this online even. Okay, thanks a lot, Nectarios. We will now move on to the second lead teacher, Natalia. And without further ado, Natalia, the floor is all yours.
Thank you. I am very honored to be part of this meeting. My name is Natalia Budinsky and I work in Petro Kuzmiak School in Ruski Krstur in Serbia. I will present my experience with aerospace in-class materials and talk about how I used the Airbus Foundation space materials in creating my own learning scenario, the future of the skis. It doesn't move. Sorry. The learning scenario introduces students to aircraft constructions through the mathematical content, particularly geometry. Students will put mathematics in real-life context and of aircrafts. I found out that Airbus Foundation Discovery Space and materials prepared by Airbus Foundation are very useful for creating different and engaging mathematical lessons. My topic was future, very intriguing when we think about sky or about future, since human knowledge is about space and sky is limited. So human children especially. So now journey is long when dreams are big and sky. That is why I also to learn important mathematical content. As a math teacher, I work my work content and illustrate why mathematics is important for everyday life and for future, especially today in the world based of technologies. Was to give visual representation of the lesson plan. So we watched the video that offered information, and the next step was to talk about planes, but in the sense of measurements in order to learn mathematics. I have also used paper folding. So implementing hands-on activities open new possibilities for explaining the world of geometrical shapes through paper folding and producing paper models of future students who prefer technology. I have recommended the use of Minecraft in order to at the presentation, at the end of my presentation, I have several suggestions in the process of creating your based of the Airbus Discovery Space materials and knowledge gained through the Aerospace in class MOOC. First of all, make your lesson for example, teaching and hands-on activities, combining mathematics and language, mathematics and art, language and art, so different combinations. The real world and importance of learning content, school content for the future. So that's the second advice. The third and opportunities, use art. And the last advice is that have in mind that maybe some of your students might become a pilot or astronaut. I wish you successful lessons and a lot of fun continuing with activities at the MOOC. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Natalia, and sorry everyone, it seems like the connection was a bit interrupted from time to time, but I think we got the key points and also the suggestions that Natalia shared with us. So that is important, and I think as you all could see, we heard about the paper plane origami by Małgorzata, we heard about the history of flight by Daniela. And perhaps you already took a look at Irene Siotu's learning scenario. She's also a lead teacher who covers also very similar topics. And all of this is just to say that there are similar topics and very similar approaches, and yet very diverse options of how to implement them in class. So I think there are so many ideas and so many ways to do this that it's just great to exchange and to hear what your peers in this Aerospace in Class MOOC have to say. Now, this is the moment to ask your questions. I see that in the chat, so far, we have not received any questions yet. So please, if you have questions about your learning scenario, now is the moment, because you have 5 very skilled and very brilliant teachers here who shared their excellent experience. And this is your moment to ask them your questions. Also, I see we have some lead teachers in the chat with us, so also they can help you if you have any questions. So please ask your questions now. And I have nonetheless received some questions in the Facebook group or throughout the course in the MOOC. So I would like to address the first one already, and that is a very common issue that many of you encountered, the language barrier. in implementing the Airbus Foundation Discovery Space videos. Because as you know, these videos, they're available in English mainly. There are some other languages, but what can you do? And many participants actually mentioned that they cannot use the videos because their students do not understand English. So our course moderator, Yekaterina, has already suggested to collaborate with peers or with colleagues to create subtitles in the local language. But I would now like to pass on this question to our teachers who have experience with this. So how either Nectarios or Natalia, or even if they're among the other three teachers, if you have any experience with this?
Well, can I answer this?
Nectarios,
okay.
Please.
Okay, I have experience, of course, because we used one of the Airbus Foundation Discovery Space videos. My students were 10 to 11 years old. They had some knowledge of English. It was not that hard for them because they understood some of the things, not all of the things. So my solution was to stop the video. They watched the video one time all together with no stops. So they knew some of the things they had to understand. And then the second or the third time, I stopped the video every time, every 5 or 10 seconds. I try to explain to them what the video said in this part, and they could ask questions so that they could understand more things from this video.
Okay, perfect. That sounds like one way to do it. I also know from another lead teacher that she created a PowerPoint presentation at the same time. So basically she had subtitles on the PowerPoint and showed it at the same time of the video. So that could be another way. Now, we also have some questions regarding the Airbus Foundation Discovery Space videos, or the topic of aerospace outside of the STEM school subjects. So I think we don't have any non-STEM school STEM subject teachers with us today. You are all involved in the STEM subjects, but nonetheless, I would pass this question on to you. Maybe you have some ideas for colleagues, how they can implement this in a non-STEM class. Perhaps the history of flight. Daniela, do you want to share?
Yes. In Italy, we have a CLIL, and is perfect for a CLIL lesson because we can use the movie in Airbus project, and the easy is the improve for the student, and for the English teacher and the science, physics, math, art is a very good idea for or a CLIL experience or for STEAM, but now STEAM interdisciplinary is the new it's impossible teach if not with STEM or with interdisciplinary kind. It's impossible now is in Europe in this time, and no use this new technology or new methodology, because this is the present, and Airbus project is very good because can use in different kind, and this meeting is very important for explain this. Thank you.
Absolutely. You raise a very important point, because that is the point of interdisciplinarity and multidisciplinarity, as Natalia mentioned, because the STEM subjects, they all relate to one and each other, and they even go beyond. So it's always important to collaborate with other subjects. Does anyone else among the speakers want to share some ideas, or maybe some ways of integrating this also beyond the STEM subjects? Because otherwise, I know from one other lead teacher, she actually implemented her learning scenario in an English class, and she focused on the vocabulary of furniture, and I believe you will already have a look at this in module 3. So what she did is in her English class to set up a moon base with her students. And the students would watch the video. Of course, the video was in English, so also this can be an entryway into an English class. And then the students had to imagine and build up their own moon base and name the furniture, draw some images, and so on. So here you can also see that in language classes, you can use these resources. And the resources are available not only in English, by the way, but also in French, for instance, and in other languages. Okay, I see one question that we've received from Cristavao. Is any learning scenario about what is going on Mars in the last months, and or if this is reliable for the MOOC? So I can answer, you can definitely include the Mars rover landing in your learning scenario. I think, again, this is a real-life example, and perhaps Jose Maria, he also mentioned the Mars rover landing in his presentation. So there you can see that you can draw connections to what is going on currently in space science or in aerospace. So Jose Maria, do you want to share maybe some ideas?
I totally agree with Daniela. I want to tell along this with lesson plan, there is a separately activity. This activity consists on creating a fictional tale, half a novel, half a comic, in which our project is the solution to a real problem that can occur in space. The students have made their own drawings and contributed to the writing of the tale. Is another example of the interdisciplinarity. Is what it is.
Yes, okay, thank you a lot. And I see we also have some questions about the age range. So this is a concern that has received some attention in the Facebook group as well. And you know that the resources are particularly targeted at the age of 8 to 12. But of course, you can go beyond this age or go below, because in the learning scenarios, if you browse through them, for instance, one of the lead teachers from Turkey, Selçuk, he created a learning scenario for an upper secondary class in which some quite advanced coding techniques were used. But then Nectarios, for instance, I believe your learning scenario was actually for younger students. Is that correct? We cannot hear you right now.
Now I think that you can hear me. Yes, yes. Of course, my learning scenario was for students from 9 to 11 years old, but with a few modifications, maybe can be implemented in even younger classes. Most of the part is hands-on. Some of the parts that is difficult for the younger students maybe can be modified, or maybe can be shown by the teacher only, and the students can see the results of, for example, the experiment with electricity. Maybe it's not very suitable for the very young students, but the teacher can perform it in front of the students so they can understand the results of electricity on an airplane.
That is very true, of course. So some experiments, they wouldn't work with younger students, especially involving electricity, but if you adapt your learning scenarios appropriately, then of course they can also be adapted to younger ages. And that also includes, so integration into a younger school curriculum, as we see from one of the participants. So integrate into the curriculum of early childhood outside of STEM activities. So this is very much possible. Of course, you need to adapt a bit the content, but I think the topic itself, aerospace, it can be very suitable to create real-life examples. And I also see from Ilse, who is also a lead teacher joining us today in the chat, that she did similar as Nectario said. This is, I think, the answer to the English question, how to show the videos for non-English speaking students. So this was the Q&A session. I would now like to share with you some points on what is next. And here you see a little outline. First of all, we want to encourage all of you to reach out to your peers, as we did today. So you've heard 3 MOOC participants, as well as 2 lead teachers, and there are many more participants and many more among you that all bring your own experience and expertise to the table. So really take advantage of this, reach out, exchange, collaborate, and give feedback on your brilliant ideas, because remember, you are not alone in this. Second, you have heard some excellent ideas today. So if you feel inspired, then take this moment to go back to your learning scenario, or as we have seen in the beginning, some of you, they haven't started yet. So take this moment to start with your learning scenario draft and start creating your activities. In the next module, which will be released on Monday, we will have a look at the last sections of your learning scenario, and you will finalize your entire draft. So from next week on, you can submit your learning scenario, and most important of all, you will give and receive feedback within the peer review activity, because we believe that feedback is a crucial part of the process, and that's why we made this a mandatory activity for everyone. And you will have until Wednesday, the 24th of March, to submit everything before you get your course certificate. So the recording of this TeachMeet, together with the slides, will be available on the MOOC website in the following days. And now I remain to say thank you so much again, Jose Maria, Małgorzata, Daniela, Nectarios, and Natalia for your presentations and your expertise. And of course, thanks to the audience for your really interesting questions. I wish you all the best for the journey in developing your personal aerospace and class learning scenario. And I will be looking forward to seeing you on Monday for Module 4. That's all from our side. Take care and stay safe. Have a nice evening. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Bye. Good night.
Bye-bye.